The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talk Politics. Our guest this week, I guess for the final time, I'm getting kind of emotional here, is outgoing Durham MP Erin O'Toole. Thanks for joining us in studio.
Good to be back, Deb.
Yeah, so we spoke when you had made the decision not to return, and I guess now it's very real, and you have announced what you're going to be doing. First, I want to ask you and go over again, why are you leaving now? People are asking, you were elected for a term. Why are you leaving before the term is up?
Well, this is a minority parliament, and the minority parliament started with me as the leader of the opposition, and no deal between the Liberals and the NDP. Most minority parliaments last a year and a half. We're past that now. I also, in February of last year, lost the leadership amidst the convoy and a lot of the tensions that had pent up after the election and after the pandemic. And so for me, I wanted to serve the term for my community, but this could go till 2025. And it's also a huge sacrifice for our family, for our kids. My kids are still at home, but our daughter Molly, just for one more year. And it's very difficult going from being leader to not being the leader, and there being a bit of a different style, a bit of a different approach. That's fair. It's meeting the time. But I think the new leader doesn't need the old leader hanging around. I also think it's a great opportunity for me to get out in the private sector again. I've always given back to the community. I've always been involved in supporting charities and everything from the military and family, True Patriot Love work I did, through to raising funds for women's shelters and other things. I will remain an active citizen, just not an elected one.
There are those that have said, that job of MP out in Durham, that was yours if you wanted it forever, for however long you wanted it. How difficult is it going to be then, or has it been, to leave this arena?
It is difficult. I gave my final speech in the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago. My final speech in Durham will be on Canada Day, just before fireworks in Bowmanville, so I can't go on too long. People are there for the fireworks, not for the political speeches. And I've never forgotten what an honor it is to represent the community I grew up in. I grew up in Bowmanville and Port Perry. I represent both as MP. I have for 10 and a half years. I've always tried to do that professionally and in a way that engages people. And I've had a lot of jobs along the way, almost Prime Minister, and I did that with always my roots in mind. So it will be a little hard giving that up, but I'm also not a career politician, Deb. As you know, I was in the military, I'm a lawyer. I don't think people should be in politics forever because it becomes a subclass of politics, and people that only know the political bubble. I think my experience as a dad, as a suburban volunteer, as a business advisor, as a military veteran, that made me a better politician. So it's time to pass the torch to someone new. But as I said, I will continue to give back. I'll give advice to my party and to anyone in public life if they want it. And I will promote Canada in my new job, working with exporters, working with investment funds. I've said Canada needs to show a little bit more ambition on the world stage, and I'll be working for a Paris-based European company, but running their operations in North America. So I'm going to really be promoting Canada in a different way. Okay,
so let's talk about that new job and exactly what you're going to be doing. Exciting times.
It is exciting times because I said to my wife, Rebecca, this job is really like the unicorn job for me because it's something that takes in my public life, including my work on trade with the European Union. I'll be working with a Paris-based company on trade issues. It takes into account my legal background and business transactions, global mergers and acquisitions, but also my military and security. And if you look at the time we're in, the war in Ukraine, these tensions with China, the foreign interference and the rise of populism, the changing needs for supply chains globally, the rise to slowly decarbonize and have more EVs, critical minerals. This is a real time of opportunity, but a lot of uncertainty. And our business is essentially helping businesses, investment funds, including pension funds, invest or grow their opportunities in difficult parts of the world, whether it's in Africa, the Middle East, or whether it's in emerging markets. We have coverage of about 130 countries, and we give you intelligence and operational assistance to have success. So it's kind of a perfect fit for me. And as I said, I was looking to make the change after completing a few things here in Durham. I've been an advocate for the small modular reactor at Darlington for many years. I've continued and handed off my work on mental health and Sam Sharp in Ottawa. So I think it's going to be difficult, but it was probably a perfect time, having accomplished a lot, to now focus on a little bit more time with family and some opportunities outside of politics.
And how did this opportunity arise? Did they come a court?
They came to me, yes,
Yeah.
through a contact that recommended me. The interesting thing, Canada was founded in French, right? And then, you know, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, the French and the English, of course, in partnership, not a very good one early on with Indigenous peoples. But the French, the Francophonie, the French world, is remnants of the time where France was the global power. And so they have a lot of very deep connections with countries all around the world, but some weaker ones in the Commonwealth. So having someone in Canada helps them grow a presence in North America, which is largely English speaking, with some French in Canada. So a lot of French companies will use Quebec and Canada as a beachhead for North America, the United States and Mexico. And that's what they're going to do. We've got a small office in Mexico City, but eventually this European company called Addit wants to build up their service offering for North American clients. And Australia, UK, New Zealand, other sort of Commonwealth countries to complement their Francophonie. So for me, it was kind of a perfect fit. You know, my French is very much Durham Region kid who learned French in the military, but I'm bilingual, and that led to an opportunity for them to get someone quite well known in Canada, but with a background in business and the military that helps sell their product.
So it sounds like a lot of traveling.
It will be eventually, but not as much as I was doing as MP for Durham and as party leader and as minister. The first number of months will be really getting to know the team I'm going to lead here in Canada, working on providing service to a couple of new clients in Canada. So the first number of months, I think, will be a little less travel, but then, you know, I will have to go to Europe a few times a year, and probably a lot of travel within Canada.
So where will the O'Toole family call home? Because you moved them up to Ottawa when you became leader.
Yeah, we moved to Ottawa when I ran for leader. The children were young, and I was noticing, as I got more responsibilities in the Harper government, ultimately becoming a minister, I was only home for really one day a week when the House of Commons was sitting. And, you know, I was spending time with Molly by taking her to the ribbon cutting of a new business. And that was hanging out with Dad time. So by moving the family and the kids to go to school in Ottawa, it allowed me to see some of their swim meets. It allowed me to have more role in their lives. And Molly's got one more year of high school, so we want to let her finish in Ottawa, and then we'd like to come back somewhere in the Durham region or on the edges of the Durham region. We haven't really decided yet, but it was a big sacrifice. You know, public life was. My wife walked away from her career in sports and media. She always had a very engaging, exciting career. The kids have moved schools several times. So we committed all in to politics. I'm proud of what we've done. But over the next year, we'll be deciding what's the best time to move for us, not based on the next election cycle. But we do want to get back to this area where family, friends, and our business and charitable work has always been done.
So Durham hasn't seen the last of Erin O'Toole?
You're not rid of me yet. I won't be on the doorsteps as much or at as many events, but I've already said to some of the mayors that I'm always there to help if I can.
You know, previously you were talking about foreign interference, and that's something that you hadn't really talked about in our previous interview. CSIS informed you that you were indeed a target. You talked a bit about that in your final address at the House of Commons. did they tell you anything you didn't already know? And did that have, I guess, play any part in your decision to leave politics?
No, I'd already announced that I was leaving when I got my briefing.
Okay.
Certainly when the news broke in the Globe and Mail in February, I hadn't announced, but we were already thinking of leaving. In fact, we were on a family holiday talking about leaving when the story broke.
Okay.
Now, that part wasn't a surprise because we had told CSIS, we had told the Trudeau government that there was a lot of foreign interference. It wasn't enough to change the outcome of the election. And I was very careful to always say, Mr. Trudeau won. You know, I respect our system, I respect him. But I also respect voters in every single seat. So out of 338, we shouldn't be happy if 5 of them were changed, the MP, because Beijing didn't want that person, or Beijing didn't want me or the Conservatives to win. And there was a lot of evidence of a very sophisticated campaign of pressure on Chinese Canadians. That they came to Canada in many cases to grab hold of liberty and to escape tyranny, and to think with police stations being opened here and pressure that they were subjected to that. So we've got to get to the bottom of this. I think Mr. Trudeau's avoided it. He's failed on this issue, but it had nothing to do with me leaving. You know, my prominent role for many years as foreign critic for the Conservatives, I was one of the first people to start talking about no Huawei in Canada's 5G system. I was one of the first to really push on a lot of issues, from Hong Kong to the Uyghurs, Tibet. And I think Canada can't just look at China as one big market to sell to. We can't sacrifice our values for the economic gains. We have to find a better balance. And Mr. Trudeau has been completely out of balance. And I would like us to clean up this interference issue before the next election.
I also have to ask you, you know, were you, so the foreign interference obviously didn't come as a surprise to you, but were you surprised by the depth of the organization behind it?
Yes, and I was surprised that the government knew. This is what I think Mr. Trudeau hasn't ever really taken responsibility for. They knew that the Conservative leader, his main opponent, was being targeted. They knew that Mr. Chong, my foreign affairs critic at the time and a great MP, was being targeted. Ms. Kwan, an NDP. They knew there were these operations and they ignored the warnings. And in the last few months, we've seen multiple ministers say, I didn't check my emails. I wasn't briefed. My staff didn't tell me about Paul Bernardo. We have seen the biggest Keystone Cops operation in the last few months, all to avoid responsibility. And I think it's a sign. The Prime Minister has never been a details person. He's always been the sort of celebrity that breezes in and shakes hands and leaves. Governing is actually about getting things done. It's about the hard work. It's about being accountable. And so I think this is why I'd like to see the Conservatives win the next election. I think our government is completely disconnected from the needs of the country. Everything from foreign interference and safeguarding our democracy, to the economy, to getting passports on time, to processing immigration cases. Our office in Bowmanville has never seen the backlogs and the inattention that we see now, despite the fact, Deb, we've never had more people working for the government, and we've never run bigger deficits. So we're spending more, hiring more, and getting worse outcomes. So I think, you know, maybe I'm talking myself into staying. I'm so frustrated.
Don't you want to stay and fix this, Erin?
I tried to replace them with a leader who was not a celebrity, a kid from Durham, but who gets stuff done. I know we would have won if it wasn't for COVID, so I'll always have a bit of the regret of the timing I had. But I think it's a sign we need change in this country more than ever.
Okay, on that, I'm going to hold you there. More of our conversation with Erin O'Toole after this.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Connection. We all need it. We live for it. It makes us feel like we're a part of something bigger. It makes us laugh, cry, and scream out for the world to hear. Connecting Canadians has been our focus for over 60 years, and it's just the beginning.
Hi, I'm Daryl.
And I'm Julie.
We're the hosts of the Mindvine Mental Health Show, presented by Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences.
Each episode, we get the conversation going by talking with experts and people impacted by mental illness.
Join the conversation with Mindvine.
Only on Rogers TV.
Lovely viewers, it's your host of On the Couch, Antoine El Hashim, reminding you to tune in for every episode of Season 9 of the longest running and most loved local queer talk show on Rogers TV. Check it out.
This is Rogers TV.
And welcome back to Talk Politics. We are in conversation this week with Erin O'Toole as he prepares to say goodbye to politics. In your final speech in the House of Commons, you denounced the current state of politics. You had a stern warning that MPs need to listen and build bridges. Why do you think that isn't happening? Why has politics become so divisive?
One of the biggest reasons, Deb, is social media. And I've noticed, given my time, almost 11 years in politics, I have seen the impact of social media. When I was first elected in a by-election, you'd remember,
2012.
Twitter and Facebook were kind of there, but Facebook was, I will be in Orono at the town hall, or I'll be in Port Perry and Palmer Park. It was a broadcasting tool for politicians. Now it's a feedback loop. And what I've noticed is politicians, whether left or right, really see what their supporters are saying and respond to it. And I've seen it go very crazy on the left, you know, shut down Canada, some of the idle no more rhetoric where, you know, we take reconciliation, which is important, but turn it into tearing down the economy and tearing down statues and tearing down institutions. At the same time, I've seen on the right, or the populist right, conspiracies about the World Economic Forum or, you know, Bill Gates, and they're crazy. And some of them are a few steps removed from anti-Semitism and other things. But people are being fed them through the algorithm, that once the algorithm knows what you like, whether it's recipes or you know, your hobby, or whether it's sharper edged politics, you're going to be fed more and more and more of that. And what we're seeing is a lot of politicians are now surfing on that. They see large sort of trending stories or things going viral, and they want to play a part of that. And so I've said leaders, and each MP is a leader in their community, don't follow their followers. They try and take those frustrations and channel them into positive ways. So when people on the street at Maplefest ask me about the World Economic Forum, I try and say to them, don't believe this crazy conspiracy online. Stephen Harper sold oil and gas from Canada at Davos with a big speech at the World Economic Forum. Any table where there's billions of dollars of investment, where there's opportunity to sell, establishing your business in Canada, we should be at those tables. If we say no to all these tables because of mischief online, we're missing out. As a country that founded NATO and the United Nations, we've always been a multilateral player, even more than the Americans. We need to fight back at some of these narratives we see online. That's the biggest change I've seen in the last 10 years. There's some MPs that really are just followers, and they are losing sight of their responsibility.
How do you encourage, I guess, a civil discussion about these conspiracy theories when people are so, I mean, they become so passionate and willing to accept them? And that people have become so angry, and they're not willing to listen to another side.
Well, there's a couple things there. First, we now know the impact of algorithms. the algorithm will actually change your behavior and change your views, because you're seeing so much repetition and it's being cloaked in legitimacy. My friend showed me this, or I'm seeing this trend in my circles. We're seeing this lead to higher body image issues in young women on Instagram. We're seeing this lead to political polarization. We've got to have more transparency on algorithms and more education about how they will actually change society. Some of our adversaries, like China and Russia, are using those algorithms to cause discord and chaos here. We have to know that. The other big challenge has been the pandemic. So tensions in our society were accelerated in the pandemic. People were isolated. People were using social media more. People were worried and they were looking for answers. Well, the answers aren't going to be found on TikTok. I'm sorry to tell you that. So what I'd like to see is more longer form discussions, like we're having, more serious journalism that's independent of just broadcasting like you see in the States. They have Fox for this group of people and they have CNBC for this group of people. We need more balance. We need more cross-pollination so that people on the left hear a view from the center right and vice versa. It's not going to be an easy challenge because these social media tools are already so entrenched after such even a decade. But we have to safeguard this, or else we're going to see more results like we've seen. Mr. Trudeau hasn't won the popular vote in the last 2 elections, but he targets a few city ridings, a few city issues. He literally lies to people about firearms to scare urban people about rural people. Well, these are causing divisions, just like calling an election after announcing a vaccine mandate that they had no legal advice on. Most serious scientists said you can't politicize health decisions for people. That's caused division. So I've said society is a bit like an elastic, and the pandemic has stretched this elastic out to its almost breaking point. I think leaders have to slowly help society reduce the tension, come back. I see it happening now, but politicians can either be part of the solution or they can be part of the problem and play on those tensions. And if we're not careful, we could see a country that's less united, less prosperous, and less relevant on the world stage. We're already seeing that.
Are you done with politics for good or just for now?
I believe I'm done for good. I've given over 10 years of my life. As you know, I also volunteered on my father, so it's been a big part of my adult life after leaving the military. I will provide advice. I will always kind of serve. I'm going on an expedition to raise money for veterans and to celebrate the Devil's Brigade with my old charity, True Patriot Love. So I'm always going to give back, but I think I've done my time. You never say never, because they'll clip that 10 years from now if you decide to come back. Look, the President of the United States is 80, so I'm 50, so I guess there's 30 years of play. But I really do doubt it. I think my style of politics might have worked better about 8 years ago. I think right now, until we get through this period of kind of polarization, I've always been one that's tried to build bridges, and I think it's the right way to go, but it's a bit not in fashion now. And that's why I had some warnings in my final speech to both liberals and conservatives. We're demonizing each other so much, and we're seeing our followers becoming quite strident online, and we're not doing anything to try and bridge that. And I worry that if this becomes the permanent state of politics, not only are you going to have more of these minority parliaments where these weird deals have to be struck with the NDP, you're going to get fewer good people going into politics. I tried to recruit a lot of business leaders, especially women, to run for us in 2021, and almost all of them said no, and almost all of them cited social media and divisions as the reason they didn't want to subject their kids or their family to that sort of vitriol. If we're not careful, we're going to have just a permanent political class of people that get a job out of university, become a politician, on the Hill, and have never really been out in the real world. And I don't think that's what our House of Commons was meant to be.
Any regrets?
No, I think people need to realize that my attempt to run a campaign in the pandemic, free of division about the pandemic. Our slogan was Secure the Future. It was all about the economic plan, including economic reconciliation with First Nations, including a smarter approach on the environment while also getting our oil and gas to global markets. I'm very proud of that document. In fact, if Mr. Trudeau adopted it right now, it would have Canada in a much better way. But I knew moderating our position on a few things would upset people if I didn't win. They'd say, oh, look, you moderated with this guy from Southern Ontario and we didn't win. Well, we didn't win because of the pandemic. Actually, people responded well to a smart, innovative, but somewhat moderate Conservative Party. I think that's the secret sauce if Pierre wants to win a majority government. So my only regret really was the timing. I really do think had I had a different window of time, I think that plan and the offering we were giving Canadians would have won. We were winning most of the campaign, so I'll always have some regrets there, Deb. I'd be lying to you if I said there were no regrets at all. But I don't regret the attempt to reach out to more people. I want to see that more in politics, not less. Okay, we only have about 40 seconds left. What are you most proud of during your time in politics? Helping families here in Durham. We reunited one family, a woman that had been separated from her daughter, and when she comes to our office, there's tears years later. So it's often the little wins that nobody's seen that are the most impactful because we've changed and saved lives. The stuff in Ottawa, the winning of leadership, the accolades is less important than helping people. Okay, and on that, our time is done. Erin O'Toole, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and for all you have done. Thank you, Deb. It's been a real treat. And thanks to our viewers for joining us. Until next time, I'm Debra Hutchison. Bye for now.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Smudging is a very important part in our life as we're all learning to walk the good way. When we smudge, we use the sacred medicine, the white sage, the sweetgrass, the tobacco, and the cedar. It cleanses negative energy and replaces it by a positive energy. When I smudge, I cleanse my end and my eagle feather and start cleansing my breath to have better words. I will smudge my eyes so I could see the better things offered to me. I will smudge my ears to hear the good thing that people have to say. I will smudge my hair to have good thinking from my head. I will bring the smudge to my feet so I could walk in respect with our Mother, the Earth. Smudging is the way we give our prayers to connect our spirit to the Creator. We express gratitude for the gift of life, the learning, and growth.